All right. How you doing today, Grady?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Um, so what's new from the last time I saw you?
Um,
I know it hasn't been that long, so
no, it hasn't been too long. Not a lot going on. I'm on spring break right now, so I've been kind of enjoying my time off. Not have a whole lot of homework this week, so yeah, just been kind of taking it easy.
okay.
Trying to relax a little bit before the last push till finals.
So when is finals for you guys? A couple weeks?
It's like the end of April, so probably about 6 weeks left. Somewhere around there.
All right. How do you feel about them?
Pretty good. I got A's and everything right now, so want
There
to
you
make
go.
sure I go into finals week with all A's, and then I'll have a little bit easier load when it comes to actually taking the test. I won't have to worry about getting a super high grade, hopefully.
Good. Good. So last time before you left, you talked about working on mindfulness. Did you think about that at all during past couple days?
Um, maybe it might just be because I'm unpracticed at it of making that conscious choice to be mindful of things. But I've definitely um, there have been moments where I'm doing something and I kind of start thinking about, what's going on, why am I doing this, what do I got going on next, and just trying to, I don't even know what cues it. It's just kind of spontaneously like, all right, I need to be doing this or this or this, and I would definitely say that our last talk helped with that.
Okay. So would you say your awareness of just the things that you're doing is just improving generally, or is it like are you kind of going over the why or um, the reasons why you're doing stuff, or is it just like your awareness that you are doing things is improving, or both?
Um, I I would say a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think it'll being a little bit more aware of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It'll definitely be a little bit more impacted when I start going to classes again, and spending a little bit more time in the library. I
Okay.
think it'll help me stay a little bit more focused when I actually apply myself to doing homework.
Okay. So odd bad timing for asking you how focus is going during homework since it is spring break. But how's your focus been? Has there been anything that you've been focusing on lately after we've talked about mindfulness that you feel like has improved?
Um, well, I was going through a lot of scenarios. We have our advising and registration is next week, so I was going through a lot of different variables and scheduling my classes for next semester, which ones are going to work best with each other, and what schedules were going to allow me the most freedom to try and get the right part-time job.
Gotcha.
So trying to kind of plug in all those variables at one time and just testing out different possibilities. It definitely required a little bit of focus to put all that together and see what the best outcome was.
Right on. Um, well, that's good to hear. Good to hear that your focus seems to be improving slightly anyway. If helps you with scheduling, it'll help out. Um, what about just overall? We talked about mindfulness. We talked about um, focus. What about your concentration? So keeping your attention on specific goals. So, like for example, if you do, have you been getting sidetracked from anything?
Um, no, I wouldn't say so. I mean, I've definitely been less productive in general
Right.
this week, but
Poor
I
timing.
mean, well, yeah, but at the same time, I've earlier in the week or this past weekend, I tried to take advantage of um, a lighter school load by cleaning the apartment, trying to do some deeper cleaning stuff in the bathroom and my own room. And in the past, I've found myself getting distracted by finding you know, random things,
Right.
you know, that make me reminisce about other things, and I kind of lose track of that. But I would say, so far, I mean, you know, it's just cleaning, but it's I've been able to stay at task a lot better, I would say.
Okay. That sounds good. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go a little bit more in depth on how we can improve your focus. I know we kind of touched on it briefly at the end last session, but today I'm going to kind of walk you through an exercise. We're going to do that exercise 2 times.
Okay.
And then after that exercise, we'll talk about moving forward and applying these methods to everyday life, essentially.
All right.
Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so for this activity, there is a piece of paper in front of you and you have a pencil. Do not flip over the piece of paper yet.
Okay.
It is split into, it is split into 2 sides. You're going to do one side at a time.
Okay.
So just to ensure that you're not looking at the other side while you're doing one, we're going to fold it in half. So
Okay.
basically what we're going to do is multiplication tables.
What? My
So
favorite.
there is an equal number of problems on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to time you how long it takes you to get through each side. The first time you do it, I am going to stand outside the room. And the second time you do it, I'll be in the room with you. Right?
Okay.
Sound like a plan?
Sure.
So when I leave the room, the time will start. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to put this piece of paper down.
How long do I have? Or is it just
till it's done? When you finish, just knock and I'll stop my timer.
Okay.
Sound like a plan?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. On your marks, get set, go. All right. So that was 1 minute and 40 seconds. Let me double check, make sure you got most of these right. I'm not going to check all of them, but
Okay.
we're going to go through and check most of them. Got the first one wrong.
No, I didn't. Did I?
You did. But, however, I would say you got well over, yeah, you got all of them but the first one. Got the jitters. Got the jitters on the first one. That's the excuse though.
Oh, I know what I did.
All right. So, out of 50 times tables, You got 49, right? 49 out of 50 in a minute and 41 seconds. So this next one, I'm going to be in the room with you.
Okay.
The only thing that's going to change in your environment is me and what I am doing. All right? Sound like a plan?
Okay.
Don't be alarmed.
Okay.
On your marks. Get set. Go. Well, doing pretty good so far, I'd say. Okay, yeah. Yeah. It's been a long day. Ugh. Working. Working. It's definitely working. Grady. That way. Grady.
That's it.
Okay, awesome. Pretty similar time actually. A little slower. Pretty similar.
I wonder why.
Let me see that for a minute. You're at 146.
What was the first one?
141.
Okay.
Let's check the accuracy here. See if I got in your head a little bit. Yeah, I like the question mark.
Well, I couldn't tell if it was a 5 or
Yeah, it
6.
didn't print out so great. Looks like you passed 3rd grade.
I did.
Good
How'd
job.
You know?
You passed your times tables.
You did.
Anyway, so this one, you did get all of them right.
Nice.
With the exception of the last one, which was probably just a mistake.
Which one?
That
Oh,
one on the other side.
Right. I saw the same combination on this page, and I almost wrote the same thing down.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute.
So, what do you think? How do you feel about the first one compared to the second one?
Well, I feel better about the second one, even though it took me a little bit longer.
You felt more confident about it, you say?
Yes, just because I kind of had a warm up, but then also, and I don't know if it, like, this isn't like experimental procedure or anything, I don't think, is it?
No.
But I think, knowing, as soon as you started, like, trying to distract me, I think that helped me, like,
kind of focus
try and narrow it down. Yeah, narrow my focus just a little bit more.
Okay.
Knowing that it was like a training method.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I like the use of the word narrow too. That's good.
So I kind of had to focus a little bit more. I definitely felt there was a little bit more pressure on it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just because it was kind of under observation, and it was kind of comparing with and without that kind of I wouldn't say stressor, but there was other factors at play on the speed and
Right.
accuracy. So that put I could feel a little bit of pressure on it, but I think being aware of it and just knowing it was there kind of, I don't know if it helped or didn't help, but I think it
Kind of made you take it a little more serious. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say
Made you
that.
buckle down.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay. So what did you feel more comfortable working in the first one, or did you feel more comfortable in the second environment where it was loud and I was just
Probably the
literally
first
just
one.
trying to annoy you as much as I possibly could.
Yeah. I'm sure you could have done more.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to touch it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say more comfortable in the first one.
Okay.
That being said, I know from my training in different aspects of sports that the comfort zone is not where you want to be when you're training, if you want to get better. So
Sure.
I see a lot of value in that in like the environment that I was in for the second test.
Right. So you reacted pretty well to the distractions. Part of the reason for that could be just like you said, you kind of knew what was going on. You took it a little more seriously, you buckled down, and you narrowed your focus. That was a good word to use. That is a good technique to know how to do. Blocking out the outside environment, right?
Right.
So basically, I was just trying to be an external distraction to you, and you used your focus. You went from a broad focus of all the elements of our environment, what we see, what we hear, to just what you're thinking and what you're seeing and what your brain is doing, right? So that was really good. Good to see that. We touched on this a little bit, but how do you think that could translate to soccer?
Well, the first example that will come to mind is first touch, or like controlling a pass, or a 50-50 ball, or maybe not a 50-50 ball, but like a ball coming out of the air, and knowing that I've got enough time to trap it and like gain possession, but only if I have really good touch. And so there's definitely been moments in my past where I've felt that pressure and it's led to a bad touch, which leads to a turnover. And being a defender, if that happens, that could be really bad for us. But then there's also been times where I've known that the pressure was there, and I've known I need to trap this a very specific way, maybe with direction and just enough space so I can take 2 steps and pass it to my teammate to get it out of trouble. And so I definitely think that this kind of training would help, because I mean, for me, this stuff is pretty simple.
Yeah, definitely.
And that could be compared to like the fundamentals of soccer.
Right.
And those are like the first things to go when you lose focus and when you get tired, really.
Right.
So being able to have that kind of mental fortitude, I think would definitely make a big difference in the performance aspect of the game.
Definitely. And now that just being like you were saying, like that mindfulness thing and just being aware of it, like now that you know that is something potentially can affect performance, and you probably knew that before subconsciously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now that you're conscious about it, you got that in your pocket. You know what to do in those situations, which is good.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything requires practice to master, but
yes.
Yeah, very, very simple activity we did, 3rd grade multiplication test, and you can definitely see 5 seconds in soccer is if you have the ball, that's make or break, right? So that could be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what is a distracting factor for you in soccer? Like, what do you think is the number one thing that you get distracted by?
That's a good question.
I
don't know if I've ever taken the time to really really pick that out. I think it's easy for me to get lost in focusing on where the other team is around me.
Okay.
To the point where I might not be ready to receive a pass, or maybe we're in possession and I forget that there's a guy 10 yards to my right when the ball's coming to me, and
Okay.
it's like I said in the last interview, I didn't check over my shoulder to see where the space was around me.
Right.
So I think that's I don't want to say it's getting too focused on one thing. Well, maybe it is.
Well, it could just be, yeah, you're narrowing so much that you're not paying attention to the other things around you.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Which is good. It's good to know how to do that, but it's also good to know how to bring yourself out of that too, right? Because I don't know too much about communication in soccer, but I'm sure there's
a lot.
Sure, yeah, you guys are yelling at each other, telling each other where to go.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to pull yourself out and hear that, and you got to be able to pull yourself out and realize, okay, these guys are playing this type of defense, or these guys are doing this kind of counterattack on us.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing to notice. That's what you get stuck with.
Yeah.
What do you think you can do to help better your control of those situations?
I think the biggest part of that is I think the best way to train that would be to practice it in a game where we're in possession, and I'm constantly taking note of kind of where the flow of play is bringing the ball, and in the moments where I'm not an immediate option for our team, that's when I need to be looking at holes in their defense, where their players are around me, how I can support our attack or possession based on what we're trying to do.
Right.
And so that way, when it does come to those higher pressure situations where the ball is close and I've got to be able to react much more quickly, I'll be a little bit more practiced in being aware of what's kind of happening around me, so that when I do get that pass, I'm ready for that, and I know where the pressure is going to be coming from ahead of time.
Okay.
I think another aspect of that is what you were saying about defensive tactics, is that I'll know what their defenders are going to try and do when I get the ball.
Right.
Because if I know that, then I know how to try and break that, or I'll know where the space will be depending on how my first touch is. If I've got to take what they're giving me, then I'll be able to get a little bit more from that. Or if I have a good enough touch, I'll know how to get past them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely something to pay attention to next time you're in a game. You guys have possession for a while. It's might be something that will help you down the road, especially like you said, within the game. You being more aware of their defensive scheme, because I know you're a coach, so you kind of know how defensive schemes work. Being aware of those and what the other team's set up in, then that will help you to decide what to do, like you said, and it will ultimately set up a better play for your team or yourself. Last question based around this activity. What do you feel like when you're completely focused? Like when everything's clicking.
I've heard it called like the flow state before.
Sure thing.
Is that a thing?
That is a thing.
Sorry about my dog. He's making a little noise.
He's all right.
So I've definitely felt like in that flow state, whether it comes to doing homework or
We got a Roomba break.
Yeah. It's like all of those factors of training where it becomes natural and subconscious,
Okay.
and you just kind of do it without effort. All of those fundamental things kind of come together effortlessly. That's kind of what it feels like. It's just every pass finds the perfect lane between two defenders. It's got the right weight. It's got the perfect accuracy. Timing tackles is just enough to where you come clean through the ball, but you take out the other guy too. So he's on the ground, and he's trying to get back up, and you're off running back towards his goal.
So everything just falls into place.
It just it all clicks. The awareness is there, the touch is there, the passing, all the aspects of passing are there, and I think communication is another big one too, because sometimes that's another thing to go pretty quickly when you get tired or disoriented on the field. So it just kind of all falls into place, and I don't know if it necessarily I think it can kind of be one of those things that like spreads throughout a team, and so
yeah, I mean it definitely can.
When one player starts playing better and taking control of their role, they other teammates will kind of pick up on that and start to the influence of that kind of thing is more than just to the person who's experiencing it. I think others can definitely benefit from it.
Right. All right, so we got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to leave you with something that we can work on as we are moving forward. Obviously, this is the last session we have with you, but I'm always interested in talking about this stuff, and if you are interested in that kind of stuff as well, I'm always open. And if you want to talk more in depth about the stuff and stuff that's above my scope, there's plenty of. I have a reference written down for you, and there's plenty of good psychologists at the school. I know for sure.
Okay.
So let's talk about what you do before a game to get in the game ready.
Well, I guess first thing I do is, I show up at the field, try to be there hour 15 minutes early. Warm-up's about 40 to 50 minutes, somewhere in there. So try to get there early enough that I can take my time, get my uniform on, pass the ball around a little bit, kind of stay relaxed. I got my music in. I'm trying to get in that kind of mental state where I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm just thinking about the game, the next 90 minutes. And then once the warm-up starts, we do a dynamic warm-up. I start really focusing on trying to get myself up to game speed, because before that, when everybody's still getting their stuff on and kind of, just passing the ball around, having a good time, it's more relaxed. It's kind of just get your feet warmed up, get your touch warmed up, I guess would be a good way to say it. And then once the warm-up starts, it's really focused on, okay, I need to get these muscles warm. I need to be nice and loose. So when we go into the next stuff, normally it's some sort of passing activity. That way, when we get into that, we can do it quickly. Passing the ball with accuracy and pace, because on the field, I'm a firm believer, and most of the teams I've played on are the firm believer of letting the ball do the work. So you got to have crisp passing, less time with the ball at my feet, so I'm touching it and I'm passing it off quickly. And those are some of the things that we do in the warm up. Trying to get up to speed to try and really build our speed of play. And the warm up's a pretty big aspect of that, and that's definitely kind of it's a team effort.
Okay.
Trying to get there, and then we do a possession activity normally, which helps kind of dealing with opposition and movement off the ball, trying to see the space. So that's what soccer is. It's a game that's about space rather than just a team, two teams and a ball. It's about trying to use the space to beat the other team, I guess.
To your advantage, yeah.
Right. So that's definitely another part, and that will help get us up to game speed. And by the end of the warm up, we do some sprints, a little bit of a pregame talk, just to go over tactics. And by then, usually I'm pretty ready to do that. I will say I did notice I always play better when I started rather than coming off the bench. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I'm sure there's other factors at play in that, but
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot. Just confidence and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We don't have enough time to go over that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I will say that's pretty good memory first off, and good.
We did it for a lot of years.
Yeah, good So you got a pretty good. We call that a pre-performance routine, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I would say that you might want to add is a little bit of a centering activity before all of that. So you get there really early, like another 10 minutes early,
Okay.
20 minutes, however long, and just that's where you get your mind ready. And then from there, your mind's ready, and you're not kind of working on your body and your mind at the same time. Your mind's already there. You're already pre-focused. You're pre-ready to go.
Okay.
Activity to do that. You mentioned imagery. You've used that before.
Yeah. Normally
last session.
not right before a game. Usually that's like the night before.
Right. You can do it
Sure.
5 minutes right before a game. Yeah. Or like after practice. It's a good thing for pretty much any time. Another thing you could do for that is just mental rehearsal. So maybe not even like to the extent of imagery, just going through your head mental reps. Just mental, okay, if like the classic example for me is just because growing up playing baseball, I'm sure you have things in soccer like this too, but runners on third, 2 outs, balls hit to left field, where's the throw go?
Right.
You know, that sort of stuff.
Set pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like corner kicks.
So just mental reps. Yep. Going through all of that stuff, making sure you got that down pack. If you have strategy versus specific team, so say for example, I'm sure you did in college, you game planned a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Go through your game plan. Make sure you got it. If you have notes, read those notes. Get your brain ready. That'd be literally probably the only thing I'd add to your pre-performance, just because everything else is pretty good. And other than that, yeah, I think what we talked about in the first session, that mindfulness, staying mindful, learning how to broaden and narrow that focus, which just takes practice, but that mindfulness will help you realize when you need to do that and when you don't, right?
Yeah, I think the situational awareness for that would be a huge help.
Yeah, so that's something you can practice, and you can definitely practice that during practices or during pickup games or indoor games, any of that. And then adding a little bit of mental prep to that pre-performance routine, and I think you'll benefit from that, definitely. Do you have any questions moving forward?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of right now.
I know.
I mean, I got your number. I can give you a call
You
anytime.
shoot me a text.
Understanding, of course, that there's limited scope to your
Yeah, still learning.
ability in terms of advice.
Yeah. All right. So kind of recap. We kind of went over what we talked about last time. Mindfulness. Went through how you're feeling mindfulness wise. Went through your concentration. You said you had no issues. Felt a little more on task when you were cleaning. Went through the focus activity, which we learned a lot from, which is good. After that, we talked about how it translates into soccer, narrowing your focus, broadening your focus, when to do that, using that mindfulness. We talked about where you find yourself having difficulties focusing, so focusing too much on the other team or getting lost in physical space on the field. just kind of drifting, maybe, I would say.
Yeah.
We talked about the perfect feeling of focus, which would be that flow state, and then we talked about that pre-performance routine, and kind of how to help get you to that flow state faster. Adding a little bit of extra mental work into that. So leaving here, that's what I'd say to focus on, is just staying mindful and then focusing on adding that little extra thing before a pre-practice or pre-performance routine. See how it works for you.
Okay.
If you don't like it, just don't do it. But if it works, it works, and you're better for it. So
Okay.
right on. Well, thanks for sitting down with me again, Grady.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it. I will talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.